need your password.
You can use mine to get on the internet.
Podiges!
Welcome to Podiges, episode T2.1, Digi-Noobs Determine, covering Digimon Adventure Tri, Chapter 2, Determination, recorded September 3rd, 2017, which was a couple weeks before Tri Chapter 5 came out. Podiges is your critically nostalgic, analytical tour through the resurrected semi-animated shell of the Digimon anime. I'm Jeff Ruberg, and today I'm joined by Ashley and our two Digi-Noobs, Gabe and CT, as we continue the experiment we started 2 years ago, forcing them to watch Digimon Adventure Tri with no other knowledge of the Digimon franchise. To quickly reintroduce our guests, Gabe is a freelance translator living in Japan, and CT is an anime encyclopedia. Both of them are longtime anime fans, but haven't seen much kids-oriented stuff like Digimon. CT follows anime news and the current simulcast seasons pretty closely, whereas Gabe doesn't have much free time and tends to be pretty conservative in what he spends his time watching. If you also want to hear what their thoughts were on Tri Chapter 1 Reunion, you can find that episode at podiges.com/T1.2. or by scrolling in your podcast app back to September 2016. If you stumbled on this episode somehow and want to hear a normal review of Tri Chapter 2 Determination from Digimon fans, you can find that at podiges.com/T2.0, or by scrolling in your podcast app back to March 2016. Without further ado, let's jump into the episode. So, Ashley and I are here with the Digi-Noobs again for a Digi-Noobs reunion. For people listening,
almost literally.
People listening, it's only been about a year, actually. We released the first episode in September 2016. But for us recording it, we recorded that one in December 2015. So it has almost been 2 years. So it's a reunion because the first movie was Reunion, and now we're having a reunion, I suppose.
I think that was the only one that was actually out, wasn't it? Or did they just barely have the other?
No, I think
it was.
When we recorded that, it was only a couple months after that movie had come out. Oh, wait, no, the next month. It came out in November, and we recorded that in December. So it was right after.
We were ambitious back then.
I don't think it's that we were ambitious. It's that we were really curious about the question. Like a lot of people, when that first movie came out, were like, and before the movie came out, we're wondering if the movie series would work for people new to Digimon. And so we were like, let's test it. But then, like, as months went on, it was like clear that, like, no, it doesn't work for people new to Digimon. No one's really asking that question anymore.
But I think the curiosity got answered.
Well, yeah, the curiosity's gone, but I think the entertainment value of hearing your reactions to it is still there.
I'm actually super excited having rewatched this movie. I'm like, oh my goodness, none of this is going to make any sense to them. It's going to be hilarious.
Oh man!
But I'm glad that somebody's going to get something out of this.
Now we're here for your entertainment. I see how that is.
Yeah. So, and to I guess set expectations correctly, Ashley and I have rewatched the movie recently. I don't think we had rewatched it since it first came out in like February of 2016. But you two, this is the first time you watched this movie, and you watched it subtitled on Crunchyroll, I assume.
Correct.
And then you have not seen any other Digimon Tri or Digimon in general since you watched the first movie almost 2 years ago?
No, right? Did not even rewatch Reunion.
Cool. We figured that people having months or years between movies is the experience lots of people will have with these movies. So,
Sure.
So rewatching did not seem to be urgent. But anyway, so with that all on the table, what did you both think? What's your general impression of this movie?
Going first, I guess. Sum up in one word, I just found it pretty boring, really. Just not a whole lot to engage with for those who were coming to the series fresh. This one seemed to have a lot of quiet character-based moments and drama based on the characters' histories, as far as I could tell. And since none of that was really established well in the first movie, there just wasn't a whole lot for me, at least, to sink my teeth into. And I just really, it wasn't bad, it wasn't great, but it's the kind of thing I just would not bother watching if we didn't have this thing going on.
Did you find it more or less boring than the first movie, from your recollection?
Boring-wise, I guess maybe a little bit more so, because at least the first one had the really irritating behavior on Taichi Yama's part to at least drive our incessant anger, if nothing else. And here, this is, I was glad to not see too much of Taichi this time around, because we did really find him annoying for the reasons we laid out last time. But that aside, there were some interesting parts, but overall it was really, I don't know about UCT, but I found it pretty much kind of mellow background background noise almost is just not very engaging.
Okay, so CT, what's your impression?
Okay, overall, in general, I found it more interesting and also more confusing. Because there's more, like, digi activities starting to happen in this one as they're ramping up. And of course, we're seeing the introduction of Ogremon and Lionmon, or whatever the hell it is. And I'm like, I'm sure there have been plot lines with these characters before, because they're all reacting very exuberantly, whereas previously, at least, we were all just getting the reintroduction of the main cast and nothing else from it. So that did introduce a lot of, the more confusing elements. But in general, I don't mind feeling like I'm behind a show and trying to suss out what's there. And so the characters, because there wasn't quite so much Taichi Yamato focus, they were just kind of scowling at each other the whole time. And I'm like, all right. I like the Mimi and the Mei dynamic in this one a little more. It was a little more entertaining. You got a bit more of Koshiro in it. There are some characters who you didn't see much of at all, and I'm like, I swear, I guess they were in the other movie, but I don't remember. And of course, when you're trying to push an element like Joe's being, what is it? Borne down by everything.
The crushing weight of impending responsibility.
Right. We're supposed to be adults. I can't feel invested in it because it just seems so goofy and trite, because I assume I'm missing, the entire history of the character. If I remember, wasn't that a personality trait and possibly related to the other thing I forgot about, the whole crests? Was that what they were? They didn't even come up, but their traits. It wasn't even a thing, but I barely remember that it was a thing we were talking about before.
So it does relate to his crest/trait thing a little bit, in kind of like a little bit of a inverted kind of way. I have a segment. One of the last things I want to do is have another round of telling you what the names of all the crest traits are and having you guess who has which one. Since it's been like 2 years, you probably forget.
Probably forget
what we told you last time. And so, like, I'm curious to see after watching this movie how you would, which one you think would match. So we'll get into that. So how did you in general feel about the focus? So I mean, you talked a little bit about how you didn't you remember not liking the focus. Both of you didn't like the focus of Taichi and Yamato in the first movie. How did you feel about the focus on Mimi and Joe in this movie? CT mentioned a little bit. So Gabe, what do you think?
Well, again, there was a lot of history that we were clearly missing here, so that made things a little bit hard to really get into at times. But overall, I think I certainly like this one a lot more than the Taichi Yamato dynamic from the first movie, as I think we've said by now. See, I think one of my notes while I was going through this was something about, the props of this team being maybe the first to have some plausible character-based drama. I think this is at the end of part 2 when they were talking facing the river.
Yeah.
And, overall, this stuff was decently done. I thought Mimi is a more interesting character to watch than the focus of the first movie. Joe, again, we don't really know enough without having seen the first series to know the full story of what's going on there, but I thought it was a decent enough look at how the pressures of impending Japanese adult life must feel as some kids, digidestined or not.
I'm feeling like Mimi in the original series was probably like her personality, what they're accusing her of here being all self-centered and stuff. I have a feeling that was probably how she rolled in the original series to more of a comedic extent and would get the group into trouble. So what we're probably supposed to be getting out of this is that they're finally confronting the things that, were probably more generally iconic of their character type when they were kids, that are now like, oh, well, you're growing up. You're maybe not supposed to be this way, or at the very least, you're supposed to, you're supposed to be that way in a more healthy fashion. Maybe I'm not sure if it's making any sense.
No, yeah. I think that's a pretty good summary and take on it. That's it's interesting because like from our perspective, we have so much more context in the characters that I guess it's easier from your perspective to like see the the core skeleton of what's going on without any like emotional attachment. You're like, oh well, this is clearly that they're just facing the their archetypes from the original series. And that's
basically it.
Yeah, that's basically it.
Yeah, well, I mean, even if it's a kids show, you can't roll out, how many were there of the first two adventures? Like 80, 90 episodes total? Or am I giving it?
So like 50, around 50 for each season. So like 100 for the first.
Okay.
I mean, but only with these kids as the main cast was only the first 50. And then 2 of them were also in the second season.
Oh, okay. I forgot about that. There will certainly be development even within the confines of that. That's part of what you're trying to do with it, even if your focus is younger and you're trying to appeal to that kind of audience. So, but yeah, it feels more like they're touching upon old keystones of their original personas and aging them up. Well, not much. They're only middle school.
Yeah. Oh no! They're
high school, right?
They're all in high school except for the two younger
except for
brother and
Takaru
sibling.
Oh, okay.
and
They're right, because they're saying like first year students. So right, they're
I think
split between them.
I think some of them are second year and some of them are first year, and then Joe is third year.
Yeah,
and then
like
Takaru and Hikari are middle school.
Hence why he is so bowled over by study.
But yeah, I mean, they don't really spell out in this movie what Joe is actually like. They don't explain what he's going for. It's just like, I think they assume that people will understand. Like, yeah, he's clearly studying for entrance exams.
Yeah, if you say you're studying for entrance exams around here, people pretty much know exactly what that refers to. So you don't have to be a Digimon fan to know what that's about.
Don't worry. I've seen plenty of anime where they're really studying for stuff, so I know all about it.
Well, I mean, I'm
a pro.
The thing that might not be obvious, that it's weird they never mention it. There's so many weird things about this movie that, like, from a writing standpoint, it's like, why don't you just mention... Anyway, but this thing is that in the original series, there's a lot about how... And this is when he's, like, in middle school, I guess, that his parents... No, I guess elementary school? He might be, like, first year middle school in the original series. That his parents want him to become a doctor, and he doesn't want to become a doctor. By the end of the series, he comes around to it and is like, yes, I'm going to become a doctor for my own reasons. So that's kind of like under the surface here, that he's not just studying for any college entrance exam, he's studying to become a doctor, ultimately.
He's pushing it, so therefore he's feeling probably a lot more pressure than any of the rest of them are. And
right.
They had basically no activity between the first the series that happened years ago and now, right? It's not like they were considered active Digidestin between.
Yeah, no. Well, that's one of the things.
No adventures for them.
Well, presumably, I mean, it's one of the things that's up in the air because the second series ends with basically everyone having a Digimon, and then it basically like millions of people around the world. They literally spell it out as being 1 million kids have Digimon, and then it cuts to 20 years later when there's like everyone in the world has Digimon. And they don't explain what happens in those 20 years. And the way the first movie of this starts out, clearly there's something closed up at some point, and no idea, so presumably who knows what happened between.
That's weird, because I was assuming it was still a secretive thing, because they're all, talking about not putting them out in public and having them pretend to be little kids in costumes and stuff like that. So even if there weren't a lot around, you'd think that it wouldn't be like a freak out for other people to see little digit critters wandering around.
That confusion is totally shared by even people who know what's going on.
Excellent. Because I mean, all the people have seen these Digimon before in battles.
There have been big news events in the course of the first 2 seasons, most of the first season, that like they should have seen these things, but they also hint at like various government organizations suppressing information. It's like, 'cause that's what you're supposed to roll with, that like that's why people aren't totally aware of this anymore. But like there should have been like many kids who had interactions with Digimon by this point. So like whatever, it's right. All weird. Let's before we go too long about general impressions, we should dive into a scene by scene walkthrough. And if you have whatever comments, please interrupt me and we can
To gauge how confused things made you.
Well, I'm just glad, the best thing about it is we started right in with the fan service episode. Everyone's
true.
going to the onsen.
100%.
Obviously, if I forget, I guess there is that sort of romantic triangle between Taichi and Yamato and Sora, but obviously the OTP is Taichi and Yamato, considering that
Obviously.
confrontation between
Also,
them. I know where
Yamato,
the staff...
Kabedan, Taichi, in a later movie, like, it's there.
No, it's in this movie, Ashley. You're confused.
I meant later part.
Oh, okay. Okay, so starting off the recap walkthrough, the going into the fan service episode, the kids meet up under the bridge. They're kind of welcoming Mako. It's the first time I guess they're doing a thing. It's really ambiguous to us. This doesn't really matter when you just watch the movie and don't dig into details. But I'm pretty sure this is supposed to be months later after the first movie.
Sorry, didn't it start out with that guy who all the other characters recognized, but I did not at first, so I just called him, it's Evil Goggles. Wasn't that what started off this movie?
Yeah.
Wait, no, I don't think he was in the very opening scene.
Yes, he's it's like Ogremon and Leomon are fighting, and then he's at the end, he's holding a Digi-Egg, I believe.
Oh, I forgot about that. So yeah, there's that opening scene with Ogremon and Leomon, not that you know or care about who it is.
I'm sorry, is it actually pronounced Ogremon? Because I actually noticed this. The first time his name popped up, I thought, is that a typo? Did I seriously just type? No, it shows up again. All right, that's really its name. Oh, okay. Digimon.
So I think you actually probably have the best knowledge to understand this, but I think so. What's going on there is in Japanese it's Ogamon, right? Like they're just like in katakana, right? Like O-ga. But then in Digimon's the franchise has a bunch of Japanese materials that in the Japanese material, like these, it's like a reference book basically, and includes a character information. They'll, for all these Digimon, list an English romanization of the name, and oftentimes those names are not based on the direct romanization, like not just taking the katakana and translating it with a romanization scheme.
Probably, but I guess a Japanese person's idea of what the English should be going from the katakana.
Yeah, exactly.
How things like this turn out. Because they use that elongated vowel sounds to stand in for where we would put an R.
Right, exactly.
In other words. So I can totally see how they arrived at this, but just looking at it now, coming out of nowhere, I was like, wait, did they seriously? Yeah, they seriously did.
In that initial scene, I was being like, I wonder if this is lore that was, historic lore that they're reminding the audience about, or if it's just, like, here's a scene for... It seemed to be established a bit more like it was some manner of past lore that the series had already covered, that we're supposed to recognize the situation and the individuals, but I guess...
Well, it's tough because you are supposed to, like, the fans recognize the location and the characters, but the situation,
the situation is new.
The situation is new, and the voiceover I remember just being like gobbledygook, like whatever ominous nonsense.
But I imagine having knowing who those characters were, just the fact that they show up at all, whereas versus not knowing them whatsoever, it made the scene play pretty differently, I would think.
Also. Here's the most important question. Has Leomon always had that kind of prompt nipplage going on there? Because those were very forthright.
I'll find a picture of old Leomon.
I don't think so.
I think maybe.
So the series really is growing up, huh?
I think he's
maybe actually.
Yeah, I think it's always been pretty good.
Okay.
Pretty
Excellent.
Abby, pretty nipply, like.
Pretty Abby and pretty. Oh yeah, you're right. I think they blend in a little bit in your picture that you just sent me. The coloring doesn't quite push them out.
Right. Tri is definitely like, let's ramp this up. Yeah.
As prominently, there's some shading going on in Tri. So yeah, see, it was given contouring that we can all admire. Excellent.
Well, jumping back to a different kind of fan service. So the kids meet up under the bridge and go to the onsen. They get their yukatas. This, for people who aren't aware, I mean, I don't know if we mentioned this in the episode, because I don't think when we talked about this movie, it was before I had been to this onsen. And since then I've been to this onsen, it is...
Wait, this specific one?
This specific onsen.
Yeah, this specific one.
Nice.
it's like it's on Odaiba, which is the island that the series is set, and it's Tokyo Oedo Onsen Monogatari, and it's kind of unique because it doesn't just have the hot spring; it has this whole festival thing, and you have to wear yukata when you go in, and they have like this little indoor festival plus the outdoor foot baths that they obviously show. They have a bus that runs that brings you, which is the bus they get on to go home. And like once you go, like once I went, I was like, oh, I can see how every little detail of this episode is just like advertising a different aspect of this onsen.
So, well, taking product placement to a whole new level, basically.
Yeah.
Nice.
And it was really bizarre actually going, because I, on rewatch, noticed they do actually briefly show the girl side, but most of the time that they show of actually like in the onsen is the guy's side. And then when I went, I was like, I know my way around. Like I've already been here before. It was kind of creepy.
This is weird. I was waiting to see if we would get any of the staff there because my Hanasaku Iroha vibes were kicking in, and I'm like, oh, I know people who work in in that kind of they're of course an inn rather than an onsen, but I'm like, oh, I want to see the staff, and then it's perfectly obvious that they didn't have budget to put like any other characters.
Well, no, it's actually pretty
weird.
It's really, but the writing, so there are going to be some discrepancies because what we rewatched for this was the recently released dub, so maybe there are some line differences, but they imply at various points that like the government agents like Maki and Daigo's organization have closed off the onsen, and that's why it's so empty, and that's why there's no one around. But like at times, and they're like, okay, and clearly it's not staffed either because they close it off to them too. But then they just like keep doing stuff. Like there's still food. They still have like shurikens to throw at targets.
Yeah,
or, like the festival
and then
games.
later when they actually go to the hot baths or whatever, like there's clearly stuff there.
Right, there's a woman who like takes them away.
Yeah,
takes
right.
Biyomon and make them run away.
And there seem to be other actual people when the girls go traipsing into the boys' side to go hunt down their pets are other people. There's not just the Digi-destined. So there's people there.
I bet they like didn't have budget to animate them to people, and then we're like, oh, can we like come up with a reason for this, like partially, and like, oh, it doesn't actually explain things, and it contradicts itself, but okay, there's like kind of a reason. Yes, so they meet back at the onsen. They meet Daigo and Maki, the government agents who apparently are exes and dated before.
OMG drama.
So much drama that the first 2 times I watched this movie, I didn't notice that and actually had to point it out.
I wasn't sure if it did come across that they could have been exes, but as it gets established later, it almost feels like they were classmates who had a thing, but like it never came to fruition more. So I don't know if anything in particular got established. I'm like, oh, maybe they were like will they, won't they in high school, but then nothing ever happened, and now they feel bad about it.
You said Daigo was the professor's name, the male teacher. I think he said at one point, especially that the other one, the one was his ex. So I don't think that was left up in the air too much.
Okay.
Yeah, and
yeah,
it's also there's stuff in future movies that makes it even less ambiguous.
Yeah, you'll find out.
Oh boy, no.
Okay, excellent. There's part 4 has hanky panky.
Yeah, it's really explicit. The rating changes. It becomes a Eroge game. Actually, it becomes a totally different medium.
Ooh.
And
Yeah.
So various hijinks in the onsen happen. Like I said, it's basically advertising for the various aspects. They play festival games, get food. Then Meiko and Takaru have a chat. This isn't that significant, but it does have a lot of screen time. And
Meiko, about like,
Meiko's
Meiko, you thought we came here for you? That's funny. Lol, we came here for Taichi and Yamato. Oh, rude.
Yeah, I guess that solidifies the like Taichi and Yamato are the OTP.
They're definitely the OTP.
We needed to lock them in a sauna together so they could brood at each other, I guess.
Yeah, they really talk so much.
But they sweat out their differences. Yeah, it didn't work very well, but
Yeah, exactly. They didn't really. There wasn't much chatting going on.
Yeah, so I guess like with all the male fan service in this episode, it's kind of probably clear to you at this point that like this season is more marketed to the older Fujoshi female audience than in the series ever was when it was like a kid's toy kind of thing. It's interesting to see how like the angle the series has gone for has shifted.
Yeah, whoever it's marketed to, I appreciate personally that one half of the group seeing over the other half was the girls seeing over into the boys. for once. So.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm just not watching enough of the right series, but at least this kind of aimed at young kids. I appreciate it didn't go to shonen ends.
Yeah, but none of them were shrieking and throwing their soap at them immediately, so it come across as very unrealistic. No, to be sure, they were very nonplussed about the whole thing, because they're wandering around there for a while.
Yeah.
Every single person there is just looking at them curiously. And I guess Taichi yells at them again, "Get out of here!" when they finally grab their critters. But
I read that as some of the people who didn't know who they were just sort of saying they were in shock more than not caring so much. But that was just me.
Yeah, this movie is pretty bad about portraying shock very well. So we'll get to that later on.
That's just like their default expression.
Yeah, exactly.
They just look, yeah.
Well, it's like in a competently directed, like well animated anime episode or movie or whatever, like the absence of movement would mean something, but Tri in general like has so many still frames that are held for long periods of time for no real intended purpose aside from like cutting budget, I guess.
Right, it means something, but not a character-related something.
Right, so then when they do it to actually mean something, it's like, well, this is the same as the other times when you just like don't move for a minute. Like, okay, so moving into the second act of the movie basically breaks down to the second episode on Crunchyroll.
You mean episode 6, part 2?
Yes.
Yes, episode 6, Digimon Adventure Tri Determination Part 2. Maki and Daigo intercept Orgimon, and but then they're interrupted by Leomon.
And they shoot him with elect bullets, don't they? Is that scene, or am I?
Yeah, no, it is. I've completely erased it from my memory, so I don't know.
Yes, they try to.
They have their new technology.
Yeah.
Yeah, this like thread of like, oh, we can handle the Digimon on our own. We're going to try and like take down the threat without the Digidestined is, I think, only really explored here and not really like even in the next two movies, like is not a thing. Yeah. Doesn't even like we know some more about the general plan of what these agents are thinking, which you guys don't know about, but like it doesn't even fit into that. Like it seems like a random loose abandoned thread.
It doesn't seem to go anywhere, and it also didn't do much. They stopped shooting, and then Ogremon is like, let me smash this vehicle and toss it around, and everyone is, well, of course no one actually gets smished.
I think they only got out of that because Leomon showed up and saved the day, if I recall correctly. So they really didn't do anything useful.
No, they did not.
Leomon saves the day, and then Daigo claims credit for it, and it's like, oh, we handled it. We didn't need you. It's like, okay. Right. Anyway, Mimi proposes the actually it's been a while since we watched it subtitled, and I'm pretty sure there wasn't a dub change, but they call it daters in the original.
Okay, yeah, I don't think it was a dub change.
So yeah, they call it the same thing, the dub in the original, but the Hooters knockoff basically that Mimi is exposed to in America and then brings it back to Japan.
I like how Mako's eventual drawing is like how that translated into what they actually made later. I'm still not entirely sure because I think I was looking at it. I'm like,
Well, her drawing is pretty. His drawing like is all like compliment, like, oh my god, you're so good at like fashion design. It's like all it is like, you know, no sleeves and skirt and pom pom. Like it's not like super original. Like
yeah, there's no description of color.
Armband. Sorry. I don't want to offend.
Yeah, don't offend.
And this simply doesn't match what they make later either. It's like, okay.
And the whole thing where Mimi and Mako go on a date, and basically they're going on a date where they go clothes shopping and then eat. Like Palmon and Makomon just randomly show up in cosplay, I guess, because they're in the clothes shopping place, so they just randomly got cosplay. Like, okay,
sure,
that's
what you do.
That was a thing. Why did I write Izumi? I wrote Izumi instead of Koshiro's last name is Izumi. And I wrote Izumi for some reason. Anyway, Koshiro tells Mimi to stay put and not get in the fight, but then she's like, no. This is something you might not remember from the first movie, but how, like... Actually, no, I guess it's set up in this movie. The whole, like, people are... No. So it's in the first movie, after the airport battle. After the airport battle, there are news reports about the Digimon being scary and whatever. And so then in this movie, like, in this scene, Mimi is like, I need to show them there are good Digimon out there, which is just... absurd.
Not all Digimon, okay?
Right. I mean, that's your thought process, but then, like, even before everything goes wrong with the helicopter, like, the news report sees them fighting and is just like, there are there are bad Digimon fighting each other. Like, it's not like there are Digimon fighting each other. Some of them are good, some of them are bad. It's like there are monsters fighting each other. This is scary. Like,
Monsters are scary. The end.
Did you find any of her logic here grown worthy?
No, it seems like there was a plan due from the start, pretty much. Even before the whole errant needles hitting the helicopter thing happened.
Yeah, the execution with that is just so... I guess you have like you don't have as much investment in like we care more, or I care more. So I'm like, why this writing is so like? Why would you like? Presumably she could instruct her on like what kind of attacks to use and not use. So don't use the thing that attacks sprays needles everywhere.
Yeah, why does Palamon have a cactar form anyway?
Because cactar was really popular back in the day when Final Fantasy IX had come out. I don't know. It's a boxing cactar.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, my bad.
It had a very prominent butt in some shots. It was very strange.
That's how they're aging up.
Yeah, that I know.
Moving on, the after the news helicopter incident, everyone argues at the little veranda thing, and Koshiro chides Mimi for being selfish. Yamato and Taichi argue about Joe, blah blah blah, character, blah blah blah, interpersonal drama, blah blah blah.
Here's a fun little aside, because Joe, if I remember, at this point he was coming back from the from crane school and skipping out on the battle, saying that he was busy, right? Now, he had a text there, but like the text came in, I couldn't see who it was from, and it was sort of a good luck with a heart, let's have studying. I was assuming that he had like hidden girlfriend interest going on behind there, and that might have been a concern.
Wasn't his girlfriend like real or imagined a minor focal point in the first movie?
Yes.
This might be what that was about.
Like him mentioning that he girlfriend and everyone being surprised about that was like the biggest joke of the first movie.
Yeah.
I don't think we've actually seen her.
Yeah.
I didn't see where that was from either, but I guess that's who it would be.
Right. So I was like, oh, there's a thing. Okay, so it was a thing that was in the first movie that I completely forgot about.
Well, it is, but also like I think that text is like the strongest evidence of her being real that we've had in the entire series.
Yeah.
So that seems right.
It's still a joke about whether she's real or not in
I see.
the movies that we used to see.
It's definitely pretty weird because like it seems like having a girlfriend and like having and spending time in that relationship should factor into this decision that he has to make. You know, like it seems like a weird thing to just be like in the background and not really addressed directly by the narrative and just a little Easter egg for fans.
I thought that was going to be the thing we're rolling into as to the reason he's hesitant or annoyed by it. He's got, obviously studying, which the others don't really have to his degree. He seems to have a relationship that he wants to progress in, and the whole destiny would be causing undue stress and conceivably danger for that, not just to him, but to her, I guess. But yeah, like there's nothing happening from it. Yeah. I'm like, oh, that's the direction they're going. That could be interesting. And then it's like, nope.
I didn't really get that sense for myself. Like that message from pretty much just reinforced the thing that was really wearing down on him was the whole study to be a responsible adult thing. So I didn't get that sense of myself.
But they made a point to do that sort of cute text with the heart in it. And I'm like, oh, that's an element that they're introducing for a reason. And I was wrong.
So continuing on, Mimi gets confronted by the other girls at school and, is told that she shouldn't be so selfish. And
what was that word they used?
Jikochu. I thought that, I don't know here. Didn't we go through this whole exact thing in the first movie? Because I got a real strong sense of deja vu watching this part.
So I think what happened here is that when this movie aired, we asked you about it through Slack and asked for you to clarify what was going on here because.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah. So I think you're familiar with like the word and how common it is and stuff. I'm pretty sure what actually happens here is that like what they say is like Jikochu. And then what she doesn't understand that. And then she has to have it clarified as like, it means Jikochu Teki. And I'm like, wait, that's just the same.
Jikoshushi.
Oh, Jikoshushi. Oh, okay. So, but it's still like, it's the same kanji with like an extra thing on the end. Like
it's like, wait, how did that clarify?
Yeah. This whole thing just, again, the deja vu part, okay, that explains it if you asked me about it. Like, I could have sworn I saw this in the first movie, but if you asked me about that, that explains why I already knew it. But yeah, this whole thing it strikes me as odd that they would choose to use a Japanese word italicized in the subtitle instead of coming with something which makes more sense for things like, I don't know, self-sin, which I think would have been a better idea.
Yeah, I remember you proposed that as how you would handle that.
I like the way Past Me thinks. It just doesn't make any sense throwing in a random... Like, of course you wouldn't know a random Japanese word like that if someone came to you on the street and called you that, right?
Yeah.
So,
well, what they did... So we recently watched the dub, and what they chose to do in the dub was use the word narcissistic, and then have her not understand what narcissistic meant. Which I'm like, I guess that kind of plays out. I guess that kind of makes sense. I guess narcissistic isn't...
If they were going to do the same kind of thing, they call it like narcissi or such a narcissist, just cutting it off short, because like they do with the Japanese. Because I think Chikojushin is a pretty common term in Japanese, so just cutting off the last character shouldn't cause that much confusion. But anyway, these are just a couple things I could see they could do off the top of my head. I don't know why they didn't do it, but I'm sure they have their reasons.
Yeah, and I guess what they don't really mention in this episode much... Oh, and they do it in the beginning, maybe? How she's been in the US for a couple years, and so she's a little bit out of touch, but doesn't seem quite out of touch enough to, like, not understand this obvious word.
Right.
Yeah, that just strikes me as them trying to come up with a new slang for the young'uns to use that. It's just showing that she's not with it enough. I will say that I appreciate Mimi's say it to my face response. Not taking any shit, not taking any guff from the other girls.
Right.
I think she mentioned that like earlier in the scene where she was shopping with Mako, and I thought it was interesting. Like, I mean, interesting from the perspective of like she grew up in Japan, went to the US for a couple of years, and now she comes back and she's like, it seems like she's kind of sick of the whole like Temai Honmai like public face versus private face Japanese culture thing, and like is like, I'm just gonna say what I think, and like I'm not going to talk about people behind their back. I'm just going to be upfront with things, and I kind of admire that. I mean, and I think it also makes sense contextually that that's how she would feel having been away from Japan for a while.
Just because I got this as more of just a generic Genki girl thing going on, more than express American influence. But again, I don't know her history. I just kind of assumed she was a similar character in the original series, and this was just carry on from that and showing the strengths and weaknesses of this particular archetype that CT mentioned earlier.
I guess that's true. Like she is pretty similar Genki in the original series.
I was definitely reading that as more of an American influence to it. Not necessarily of her character, but that the writers were wanting that to be like an aspect of her American culture that's bleeding through and confronting Japanese culture. Obviously not a huge one, but it did read more like they were picking her character and that kind of connection on purpose.
Yeah.
Whatever the influence comes from, I appreciate this part, how... As I'm so sick of similar scenes in other anime where kids are talking smack about someone else who's right there in the room with them, and they just stand there with their hair over their eyes and don't say anything and just do about it.
So I sent you an image of what. So Mimi in the original series in Japan, and then in the second season, she moves to Japan. She moves to the US during the second season, and then occasionally visits. And this is what she looks like in the second season.
Her hair.
Full with pink hair with,
this
I guess...
is what we do in
stars.
America.
I guess like stars from the American flag, I guess? I don't know. Like...
Stars. I know. Oh, look, red stripes. So, yeah, that's totally... Yeah, stars and stripes, that's totally a U.S. influence, right?
But she's lost the cowboy hat, so...
If she hasn't acquired a cowboy hat is how I read this. That's to come later.
No, the cowboy hat is like an iconic thing from her first season outfit, actually.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's about all I remember about her. Was the little girl with the cowboy hat.
Which she now has as a phone charm.
You gotta love when Japan conflates the whole entirety of the U.S. into one monolithic culture when it's really nothing of the sort.
No, it's pretty. I would say it's pretty monocultural.
Yeah.
Exactly the same.
Everybody is the same here.
This is actually right now we're actually three people that are all the same person.
Yeah.
Plus Gabe.
Gabe just different people.
You're well, in fact, you've been one person the whole time. Your entire prodigious run, you've been one person. Just, like an exceptionally good ventriloquist and
we actually
vocal actor.
We recently branched out and split out into two people because one of our hosts moved to Israel past week. So
yeah.
Now we're two people.
So, yeah, exactly.
So I guess going back to the school festival, I guess it was before the school festival, Mimi and Joe have their sad scene in the rain.
I thought this was a pretty decent scene, really. Again, not knowing much about the character's history, I thought it played pretty well. First, the first has some plausible character-based drama, as I mentioned earlier.
They're kind of lamenting. It was fairly simplistic kind of scene, and they're just sort of musing over the things about themselves that people are critiquing, or in Joe's case, that he doesn't like, and then, of course, trying to brace each other up a bit. He's like, I like you anyway.
Yeah, simplistic, but execute decently, I thought.
Yeah, I think it's pretty simplistic, and like it works well for fans because they're like have all this like baggage with these characters. So them going through even the most simplistic emotional arc is like, whoa, mind blowing.
They have emotion.
There's some depth. Whoa, who knew?
Introspection. Yeah.
Whoa, like characters can introspect on themselves at all to any degree. They aren't just like cartoonish archetypes. Whoa.
I think that's been why I was impressed with it, honestly.
Yeah.
Because the characterization hasn't exactly been the most three-dimensional up to this point.
But I think this scene is basically the height of that aspect. Like I personally, especially watching the first time, really liked both the like emotional, I don't know, conflicts that Mimi and Joe have, but like I feel like both the resolutions are like pretty like they didn't know what they were doing and like had to kind of quickly resolve them. And yeah,
Mimi seemed okay, because even in that scene, there's an aspect of her lamenting it a bit, but him, because he says, "I like that about you," doesn't he?
Yeah.
I think I got that as admiring that.
I think he's like jealous. Like, he wishes he could be selfish like that too.
Yeah. Basically, she can do what he wants to, but can't, or what? Yeah, that's how I read it too.
With her, it seems a bit more like she came to terms with it, and maybe will mellow it a bit, but she just became comfortable with it. Whereas Joe's resolution was kind of it was immensely groan-worthy.
You mean like his resolution eventually, or like at the scene?
Yes, no, not this scene. His eventual resolution in episode 8, part 4.
Jumping ahead a bit here. Okay.
Yes. Well, that's why I'm not going to say anything further. I'm just like, the conclusion of his arc is pretty lame. But hers just seemed to be more, learning to be comfortable with it and, ameliorating it a bit, but not, again, it's not like she wants to, at that point, decide to change herself and go into the whole hidden self, forthright self. So it's just like, okay, well, maybe she'll be more self-conscious about it, especially if you're talking further actions with her and her cactar. But,
yeah, I get the vibe that Mimi is like, like this is the first time she really like second guessed herself, her Genki personality, and that like I think it's ultimately, I mean, like the next thing I was going to talk about is like how Mako surprises her with how she completed the costumes without her, and is like, no, I do want to do this even though I'm shy about it and whatever. And I think that was basically that is the conclusion, that she like having enough people be like, no, we like that about you, and Mako in particular being like, I don't like how you're pushing things onto me, but actually I do like it. Like having that turn is enough for her to be like, okay, I'm totally okay with myself again, which I feel like is not.
It's not like she's putting people in danger because of it. It's also,
well, she did initially. So
I mean, like it's not like the sum total of her personality is always get the group into trouble. She's initiating positive change on Meme-chan with her embrace and her friendship in general, the chat they had before, and this one here, because Mako also wants to help her in return. So yeah, it seems more like a gradual embracing of that part of herself rather than a long-lasting conflict, which she'll brood about and have some kind of sauna scene later.
Yeah, she's clearly not the brooding type.
No, not as such.
Well, you guys don't know the twist in part 4 where she goes and murders everyone.
Oh, man.
Wow. Talk about your twist endings. One thing that was different watching this movie as compared to the first one is that going to the first one, I had no idea that it was the first of a series. So I was looking at it as an entirely self-contained thing, and was really confused by how it ended and what wasn't focused on. Now, obviously, this is different. And going and knowing that it's just another entry in a series. So I'm giving it more leniency as to how characters may or may not be developed down the road, and not taking this as the final word on what we see of them. So that's funny. I knew even when watching it the first time that they were having multiple movies in the arc. I guess I'd read just a tad more news about it than you had.
Huh. Because I think even if you knew there were going to be future movies, like there's still kind of a shock when you watch them and you're like, wow, they really don't like stand alone as self-contained movies that much. Like, like even knowing that they are part of a series, I feel like it's more serialized than you would expect from being standalone movies.
Oh, certainly. But if you thought the first movie was all you're ever going to get, I was like, that's a movie? This is what I've been waiting years for. So.
That's how I feel, yeah. I still feel that, even though it keeps going. I'm just kind of like, where is it going, though? Why?
Okay, the awkwardly animated Mimi and Mako running the cafe dance sequence that had like three shots, 3 frames total. No, actually, as she's dancing a little bit, but like actually no, it was they're not. There's no animation between them. It's just hold your hands up and then hold your hands down. Like
no, there was one where there was motion.
Right, for like,
but it was still awkward.
Right, it was half second or like going across the screen or something.
Yeah, I have not seen parents getting that blatant since the early age of DVDs. It's really bad.
Yeah, they. I don't know what's up with these movies and like how if it's just like poor management of like if it's poor direction, if it's like they wanted to animate those things and never got a chance to because of other things, or if they were intentional from the start.
I don't know. Got to conserve that animation budget for the fighting scenes is my take.
Yeah, I guess
they didn't have much there either.
Yeah, I was like, but wait.
I think it's like those are like.
I didn't say it was a lot of budgets, just that they got to conserve it.
Slightly more. They had 3 more frames of budget for the fights.
Yeah. The thing with those animations in the battles, I feel like they are animated well, but it's like only lasts for like a second. You know, it's like this thing's animated. Okay, it's like over now. It was like 24 great frames, but those lasted like 8 seconds, and that's it, or whatever. Like.
Yeah. I'm mostly curious how much the Digimon fighting is supposed to be appeal to the series or not. It almost seems perfunctory more than anything. Yeah. At least at this point. I think having the like evolution forms present is a big deal, but the actual like more execution of the fights, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Seeing cool Digimon is more important than seeing them do cool things.
I was going to say they spent a lot more time in the whole transformation, and it's a lot more momentous, and then all they do is they throw an attack and evolve, and throw an attack and evolve, and I'm like, it threw Blizzard attack, which is apparently tossing a couple morning stars out. This is very weird.
Well, see, CT in Japanese, Blizzard means a morning star. It means shuriken.
I see. My bad.
I just let that one slide.
Yeah. Well, so going back to the cafe, Maki, before Maki and Daigo get to the cafe, Maki sees Ken. What did you think about seeing
How did you feel about Ken?
What do you think about Ichijoji Ken?
That was the evil goggles guy.
Yeah, the guy in the cape.
I was just like, oh, he's not completely new. He's not evil Taichi. He's an actual previously existing character. Okay, that changes things a bit in ways that I'm not yet entirely clear on.
Well, did it make you like excited to find out who he was?
I thought that was a Ken. I thought that was a K.
It was Ken Ichimonji, as I recall.
Okay.
Ichijoji. It's very important.
Ichijoji, Gabriel.
Ichijoji. That makes more sense. I always get those mixed up.
Oh, wait a minute. That's that damn character name that you, right?
Oh, yeah,
like your Final Fantasy 15.
Right. Oh, okay. Yeah, so for context, my Final Fantasy 14 character is named, like, Ken with an H on the end, and then, like, Ichi apostrophe O apostrophe G. I forgot about that.
Yes, it's that character.
I was like, oh, okay, I get it. Yeah, I have no idea where he's from. I assumed he was recurring important character from something, but there's still no development. I was trying to remember if he was in the first movie, but
no.
As you said before, yes, but like shadowy figured, I guess.
No, that was in a preview for this movie.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
They're generally really bad about the previews for these movies. Like they'll, like in the previews for this movie, showed off his presence as if it was like, and the expectation of that is like, okay, so they'll explain his presence, and then in this movie they don't explain his presence. It's just like it's like his appearance in this movie is basically a teaser for the next movie. So like,
in fact, by the end, I'm very confused by it. It's like, I'm like, I thought I had a thing you were doing here, and then it's like, so he wasn't in the whole fight scene at the end of the other one with Alphamon?
Nope, he wasn't there.
I thought there was something else like leading the alpha moniness, but I guess not.
There was I don't remember exactly which scenes he was appearing in this movie. There's this shadowy little Hackmon dude. He's like
he
little
is
dude
in
with a
this
cape
movie.
and like a weird
When
little Digimon.
Koshiro is like on the computer,
Oh, he's
and
like, "I
then
got a prophecy."
Leomon comes initially, and then Leomon
that
like
awkward.
senses his presence and
Right, like
throws
Leomon's like, I
open.
sense something, and then goes to the window, and then it just like cuts, and then they never address
Yeah.
again. It's like, okay, you really don't know how to like
Yeah, well-
handle execution here.
Well, Maki's the first one who actually calls out, like, recognizes seeing him and calls out his name, right?
Yes.
Of Ken Ichijoji,
Yeah.
yeah, but not of we're talking about Hackmon, the little dude. But yeah, Ken,
no.
Ken,
Yeah, okay.
just some like backstory for you guys to know about. He is, he's basically one of the fan favorite characters in the whole series, I would say, like the whole across multiple seasons. He's one of my favorite characters, like second favorite character. He basically starts off the second season as a kind of like a little bit mind controlled evil Digimon Emperor / Kaiser in the Japanese version. And like is that like the outfit he's wearing there is that Kaiser outfit, is the like, I'm going to rule over the digital world and like enslave everyone and like possess. He like has rings where he controls people and stuff. Controls Digimon. I mean, like he puts the ring on the Digimon that controls the Digimon, and he's basically like this evil thing. They take down in the first arc of the series of the second season, and then he joins the team eventually as a like his personality when he's not possessed is totally different. He's like totally full of regret and sorrow for being so evil, and he has a pretty good character arc and everything. So, but he's one of the kids from the second season who everyone has just not mentioned up to this point, basically.
Right.
So I guess we're supposed to assume that if he's in his Kaiser outfit, that either he's he's been mind controlled again,
right,
and is the source of this stuff, or that he was also corrupted by whatever infection is going on here, or whatever. We're not given enough details to spool anything out.
And it's a little bit more complex than just mind control initially. It's like he's implanted with a dark spore that like just kind of plays off of his darker aspects. And like it's not like someone actually puppeteering him. It's like his own darkness manifesting. And the way the second season ends is him like basically never having that fully removed. It's like under control, but it's like, well, it'll always be there as part of your personality. So
so it's been years. So
yeah, it's like it's possible he could have reverted or something, but yeah. The thing is, like, he is like a character. He doesn't go to the same schools in the original season, but like the other characters, instead of being like, oh, he's there, they should be like, I don't know, they should have like been in somewhat contact with him before, unless he randomly moved. The fact that like they reunite with the Digimon and don't wonder about their friend. I guess you just don't have any context to this, but in the second season, there are like 4 more kids that are as core to the team as these kids are. And so,
what happened to them?
Is it not at all plausible that, kids just grew apart, like not being in the same group or something like that?
Probably not if you're all digidestined together and have gone on world-romping, world-saving adventures. That probably connects you a little more, especially because they're digi-connected. They can just call each other digitally on the digiphones.
On the digivices.
Yeah, maybe we can talk to any of our old friends on Facebook if we want to, but that doesn't mean we do all the time, right? No matter what kind of... Granted, the stuff we went through in the past probably isn't that world-changing, but I can see it as, if it's been a few years after the events of the last seasons and nothing major Digimon has happened since then, I can see this is pretty plausible, why they wouldn't stay in touch.
Actually, was that just a thing? Was it like the second series, people just sort of didn't like the newer characters as much as the older ones? So if you're bringing them back, it's like resurrect the original crew? Because you'd think if you go through the same number of episodes with a bunch of new people, why aren't all of them involved in some fashion?
So you're saying like popularity-wise among the fans?
Yeah, right. I don't know if it's something where the fans largely were like soured on them by the end. They all like Ken, but they didn't like the other one.
No, that definitely is a like comparing the 2 seasons. People love the first season cast, and there's still some like lingering resentment towards the second season, basically backgrounding the older kids and then having newer, younger kids and like focusing on them. Except for basically Ken. Ken is the one that like I think people universally enjoyed seeing. Okay. So I think they're trying to kind of have their cake and eat it too with this, and like
I was just gonna say maybe it's the kind of thing where they'll give the rest of them a scene like in movie 6 in some final confrontation thing. They'll toss a bone at the other one anyway, so no one will be annoyed that, they again stole screen time from many of the people that they liked, but remind people, oh yeah, remember these other people exist in this universe.
Yeah, like a token gesture to just appease them. But it's just weird in contrast to like Mako's presence is basically like for any reason that you'd want to like avoid upsetting people who want to see the main 8, like Mako would be contradicting that and like doing the same thing. So, but I guess they want to, actually it's weird because I would expect this marketing, like the arrangement for like the series composition for this would basically be like, we want to introduce a new character so that we can sell new merch that's exclusive to the, like that introduces her as a new vehicle to sell things. But like I assume that's how it basically went with the new Evangelion reboot movies, where it's like they introduce a new member and the Madoka movies, and it seems to be a pretty common trend. But the merch for this series doesn't really include Mako, I think.
No. I mean, maybe for this 5th one where she's supposed to be.
Maybe.
I assumed as, they're throwing in at the end here, unless it's quickly resolved, she may simply be there for a change of dynamic and to balance out the crew, but it's more that they would have to introduce a new prominent Digimon that's not of the main cast to be the, what seems to now be the antagonist.
Yeah, exactly.
So, as we will obviously get to.
Yeah.
Foreshadow.
Mm-hmm.
Could she possibly be evil? I don't know. By the end of this, I'm just not sure. And, but yeah, I guess like going back to our recap before we get too sidetracked, Maki and Daigo go to the cafe, and then Maki lures Koshiro to the festival by sending a picture of Mimi. And
what a move.
If Koshiro reacts this way to Mimi's cheerleading outfit, I'm really worried how he's gonna have a stroke once they get to the obligatory swimsuit section. Just saying.
Yeah, we haven't really had a swimsuit episode, huh?
Oh, it's going to happen now that you...
I mean...
Well, they went to an onsen, but that didn't go to Koshiro's advantage.
No.
Now, has he had a crush on her from the original stuff, or...
Okay, so it's complicated. The two of them, Koshiro and Mimi, / also called Komi as a pairing, is a pretty popular ship. They didn't really have too many scenes in the original series. They basically had like one episode together, and it was very much not a shippy episode. It was very much a like they hate each other, and not in a like they're bickering because they like each other so much. It was more of a like they totally don't get along.
Personalities definitely do not mix at all.
It was really early on, so it was before like people really were attached to either of them. So I think they kind of like gelled. I don't know. I think they didn't really. I don't think they were that popular until Tri. But Tri's, fueled that flame pretty hard, and
yeah,
it feels like they're a pairing that's because it's two people who are furthest outside of the other established ones. So it's like, that's what it comes across as. But,
yeah. Well, I mean, there's I guess the shipping war there, and I would say like Koshiro and Mimi, like I don't want to say like it just started with Tri, like was fueled by just Tri. I think it had gained lots of popularity in the years between, the 15 years between.
And they're just exploiting it.
Right, they're just exploiting it. But the two, I guess, like rival ones there's Koshiro and Mimi or Joe and Mimi. And
right, and now they've introduced Joe has a girlfriend, and now we're all just confused.
But they still throw in the like little shippy moments there to. I mean,
everybody's one true pairing now is like Mako and Mimi, right?
I was going to say now it's Mimi and Mei. So how can you stand in the way? There's so much parody going on there.
Yeah,
and they are pretty adorable together. So.
Although I have to say, did we mention last time how confusing it is to have Mako and Meikumon on top of Mimi and all? This?
Yeah.
Even more confusing. Even more confusing when like it's not just Mako and Mimi, but Mimi and Mei
and then nicknames like Mei-chan or
her pet, because they don't really. I guess they do say Meikumon enough, but it's usually Mei-chan, and they're like, wait, aren't you Mei-chan?
Right, they're both Mei-chan, so like
they're both Mei-chan. Just go with it.
Yeah, seriously, who thought this was a good idea?
And like who? It's so implausible they'd happen to have the same name, like. Whatever. that might actually possibly be explained. Maybe. I don't know.
Maybe it was called.
I kind of hope so. If they're going to go to all this confusing naming trouble.
Yeah.
Have it be maybe Meikumon is a digital extraction of part of the dark part of Mako's personality, and by the end they will bond together and become. I don't know.
I just love that the on the May people's names front, the name of the Digivolve form, I think it's this Digivolve form at the end, is May Crackmon.
Yeah. it's May on Crackmon. Yeah.
May Crackmon, which is a fantastic name.
That's horrible. I don't remember that being a thing.
Oh, they don't
They haven't
mention
said it yet.
I don't think they even say it in the next movie.
I don't think we've seen it yet because we've never heard a name like that.
But now you're going to remember forever.
May Crackmon.
May Crackmon.
And then I watch the third and they will come like, wait a sec, where did I hear this before? So deja vu again.
Yeah, exactly. That's what happens when we tease things. It's all, the name confusion is even more complex because like Meikumon is spelled like COO, which looks kind of like Meiko, but then it's pronounced like Maine Coon. So then it's hard to keep track on so many different levels. Anyway, after Koshiro was lured to the festival, the Digimon, so Koshiro leaves the Digimon in his office, and then the Digimon all convince Leomon to bring him to the school because apparently they need chaperones, and like this whole thing is. They
wanted to have Leonardo da Vinci, okay?
Yeah, I don't know if you caught that, but so his name's Leomon, and there's like, I'll send you the Tumblr post that I made about this like years ago. But
Meikumon uses the unfair cute eyes at him. That was one of the few scenes that I giggled at for whatever reason. I was just like, "Oh my god, you're doing the cute puppy eyes from."
It's also a little weirdly sexual. In a like,
I was kind of more disturbed by that part than anything else, given their differences in size and appearance. Whether I know they explicitly said Meikumon was all grown up earlier on, but that doesn't change how squicky I found this part.
Yeah, especially since Leomon himself is very sexualized.
Oh yeah, very muscular. And
yeah, he's got them nipples, man.
Yeah, and then they repeat it later on. It's like, yep, still disturbed.
Yeah, it didn't get any better. I mean, maybe it got a little better when she murdered him, but
yeah, that was a nice twist. That's a whole nice wrap up. But it's like no OTPs here. Unless there's a way to bring digital monsters back from the dead, which there may well be, for all I know. But
moving on, we're not gonna address that. Well, actually, okay, we probably should at least address that from the obvious angle. There's stuff from the future movies we're not going to spoil, but the concept of Digimon being revived is it's okay.
God.
So in the Digimon,
I'm going to ask you backup systems.
No. It's basically like the village they show in the beginning of this movie is called Primary Village in the dub, or Village of Beginnings in Japanese, Hajimari no Machi. Anyway, but and it is like basically Digimon who die get reborn there, and that's just how the digital world works. And so this Leomon that they like, well, I don't know, who knows. Digimon, so Pokemon is really good about like differentiating between individual Pokemon and a species of Pokemon, right? Like they make it very clear, like this is Ash's Bulbasaur. He is different from other Bulbasaurs. Bulbasaurs might have a general like trait to them, but like Ash's Bulbasaur is unique in these ways. Digimon is extremely terrible about that. It is just like, there'll be lore into like a Digimon will be this isn't really in the movies at all, but in the main series there'll generally be this like, I don't know what they call it, but Digimon like encyclopedia, basically. Like it'll pop up on screen and be like, this is a new Digimon you're meeting, like here's some information about them. And it's like, it's always terribly ambiguous about like whether it's talking about this specific one or Digimon in general, like that species in general. And so on that front, there is a Leomon in the first season that they befriend. They're really good friends with him. He helps them out. He goes through some being possessed and blah, 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 and then he gets out of it and they helps him out. And then he later evolves into a bigger form and like helps him out, but then dies tragically. And then the digital world is like saved, and all Digimon who die are supposed to be reborn. In the second season, they meet some Digimon who have been reborn, but they don't meet Leomon. Like that's like he was one of their biggest friends who died tragically. And that's just a thread that's never really addressed in the second season, that like, shouldn't we check in on him? Like, wouldn't that be a good reunion to see? No, never addressed. So in Tri, when they meet him for the first time, like when he just awkwardly walks into Koshiro's office, it's never addressed if it's the same Leomon or if it's just a different Leomon who was like similarly heroic or whatever. And so
because they all seem to know who he was.
Yeah. I guess they're just all assuming he's the same one, but this is supposed to be the first time they've met him since he died tragically, and they're not like, it's so good to see you again after 6 years, but like...
Yeah.
So this is also actually more confusing for the longtime fans than it was for us then.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. It's also they have history with Ogremon.
Right, Ogremon is also supposed to be turned good. Like
Mimi does imply with one line that it is supposed to be the same Ogremon.
Oh yeah, I forget what the line was.
She was like, but he's still like, even if he's possessed, he's still our Ogremon, isn't he? Like,
right.
Or something like that.
Yeah, like Ogremon was supposed, like Ogremon and Leomon had a like rivalry, and Ogremon was like, they were both possessed by the same. Actually, no, like Leomon got possessed by the evil dude, and Ogremon was like willfully going along with it, so he was totally evil. But then over the course of the series, got better. He like ended up helping them and like bonded with Mimi and Joe in particular. So I guess it actually like is like there's an arc in the original series.
Right, but then Joe does nothing for Ogremon in this movie.
But I'm just saying, like the structure of this movie being about Mimi and Joe and also Ogremon and Leomon is an intentional callback to that arc of the original season. It's not handled well. Like,
no.
Joe doesn't like Joe has like a one of Joe's like the defining moment where Joe decides to become a doctor of his own volition and not because his parents are forcing him is about him putting toilet paper on Ogremon's wounds.
Yeah.
So like that's some baggage.
That's why I think it's very strange that Joe does not interact with Ogremon in this movie at all.
Yeah.
And like actively seems to not care when he is called to like help with the infected Digimon.
Yeah.
Well, given that, does that maybe explain why he seems so ashamed of his behavior until the very end?
I guess so. I don't know. I think he's just generally
can add to it.
Yeah.
Makes it worse. He's generally a shameful
just generally kind of like that.
Yeah. Okay, it's hard to tell, being non-indoctrinated like us. So.
I forgot if we covered it before, but because of what Leomon was going for, I was going to ask whether or not this is another thing where Digimon have individuals versus species. Are they all individuals? Are they all species? Can they all just sort of cross-evolve with each other into these weird forms? Because I know they have their super evolutions, or is that just a power the Digi-Destined have? Do other people, like our other Digimon, able to evolve themselves without the involvement of a Destined? So,
okay.
You've
Lots of
a
questions
bit of that, but
there's some more questions to unpack there. Like the Digivolving, it's clear. Actually, I forget the subtitles on Crunchyroll use the Japanese names for the evolution forms, right? Do you remember if it said like child and adult, or if it said rookie or champion?
I remember this movie.
Yeah, like when like Mekomon explains at one point what her level is.
I don't really remember that being in there. I just remember them talking about like ultimate evolution when they start doing the huge stuff later. They call it like ultimate, super duper ultimate. It's like, wait, ultimate implies that's the ultimate. No.
Okay. So the Japanese names for the terms, at least the first two, are like child and adult, and so like most of the Digimon, their basic forms are called child. In the dub, it's rookie, and then they evolve in the dub to champion. That's why the song is like Digivolve into champion, blah blah blah. But in Japanese, it's adult.
So.
And yeah, I guess you haven't heard the song, but
nope.
But so it's kind of implied. I don't think it's ever fully like laid out. This is exactly how it works, but it's kind of implied that Digimon like have a natural life cycle where they reach adult level just by being old. And also there's so Gachamon or Tailmon is a champion or adult level, even though she looks kind of small and stuff, and that's in the narrative, not directly explained, but like makes some sense in that she was abused a lot as a child, and so like it's kind of implied that like she became stronger through that and like had to become stronger to survive. But Mekomon being on another level, anyway. So it's basically implied that like there is natural evolution. Like they do encounter in the digital world things that are higher level without having the involvement of Digidestined,
right?
Or chosen
and we
child.
Just explained that like Leomon in the first season did Digivolve on his own.
Well, that's because of the light of a Digivice. That was like a. That's like a one-time thing that, like, so I think it's basically like the evolution, what the consistent thread to Digivolution in Digimon is that like Digimon can naturally evolve over a long period of time and they stay in that form, or when it's through the involvement of Digidestined, a Digivice, and a chosen child, or whatever, it's a temporary power-up. So all the Digivolution we've seen has been this like temporary power-up thing, but there's also the ones they encounter may have naturally reached that point, or whatever. That's not super interesting without seeing it in context though. So whatever. But yeah, it's there are lots of rules and things that Pokemon is better at handling consistently, and Digimon's just like, oh no, just take all the pieces. And I guess that's just
sometimes this happens and sometimes it doesn't.
Yeah. And I guess like Pokemon is notoriously like controlling of like a very defined world. Like I'm just thinking of like I remember people talking recently about how like animators get instructions to like never show real world animals in backgrounds or whatever, because there's a very consistent like world that Pokemon inhabits. Whereas Digimon's just like each season it's handed to a different team, different writing staff, different, like everyone basically has like free reign to do whatever. And so like there's lots of inconsistencies, but even beyond that, they're just like kind of just like play fast and loose with the rules. But and also the fact that in the shows there's always like a canonical evolution line that each Digimon has. Like they basically, get stronger and stronger, then go back down or whatever. But in the games are all about having lots of choice. And so like if you're playing with an Agumon in almost all the games, the Agumon will have the choice to digivolve into 5 different options, only one of them of which is Greymon or whatever. And so, yeah, that's a
like,
weird
and
part
if you
of the franchise.
game the tree enough, like you could digivolve any one Digimon into any other Digimon.
That's just in the one game. I don't think it's true of all the games.
Oh, really?
Yeah. So yeah, in like one of the most recent games, you could get an Agumon and turn it into a Palmon eventually. So yeah, the show doesn't really address that because that would be weird.
That seems like a roundabout process.
Yeah.
Yeah, but you got to get all the Digimans.
In summary, it's complex.
Yeah. In summary, it's complex and not.
And it doesn't make
consistent.
any more sense the more you become less of a Digi-Noob. So brace yourself.
Yeah, it almost is like in some ways, it's like we were talking about, there's various things in the movie that like make less sense the more you know.
Yeah.
So, I wonder if it's maybe not a better experience, but like not that much of a worse experience to not know all this stuff.
That's the conclusion I'm coming to myself.
Quickly wrap up the recap. So there's the creepy and cute contest, which is a bizarre thing for them to hold.
That was definitely the translation thing. I'm like, okay, Gabe, what the hell are they saying here?
I think it's pretty literal, actually.
It was Kimokai, as I recall, which is pretty literal melding of creepy and cute. So that was fairly accurate.
All right, it's just very clumsy in English.
Jacob from Anime News Network likes to call the Digimon has appeal because they're cutely. Is that
like cute and ugly? Maybe?
Yeah.
But it was funny because like we had like I think we had interviewed him like right before this movie came out, or like about the previous movie.
Oh yeah.
And he had like mentioned that.
Yeah.
And this movie came out and was like, wow, you basically hit
we
the
were
nail
like,
on the
you
head.
called it. You called it. It's exactly that.
But yeah, so then Joe reunites with Gomamon after they everyone reports that Gomamon's there.
Also, is this a common festival attraction here?
No.
Doesn't quite feel like it. It feels a little forced to me.
Gabe, wait, your son is going to school, so then eventually you're going to go to school festivals, and that's going to be so fun, right?
You're going to have to compete in the creepy
Yeah,
cute
you're going to have to compete in the creepy cute contest.
It will be an experience. I can say that much for sure.
Okay, so back to the after the creepy and cute contest, Joe reunites with Gomamon, and Meikumon is supposed to be hanging out at the cafe, but goes out and then is caught by Maki. Did you suspect anything, seeing those ominous hands reach out, pick her up?
Well, yeah, I was like, this is gonna be lame, and then they're like, oh, they subverted my assumption that it's like, oh, the moment you're separated from people for 2 seconds, you can get kidnapped randomly. Oh, okay, that's cute. But then she goes away, and I'm like, oh, now it's gonna happen.
Honestly, the part was handled so clumsily. I honestly wondered if Maki was in on the whole thing, though.
Okay.
Well,
She did come across a little sinister there.
So jumping ahead briefly a little bit to the end of the fight when Meikumon kills Leomon, did you notice her smirk?
I was not.
Meikumon's?
Maki smirk.
Yeah, Maki has, when it shows all of their like shocked faces, it has Maki and Daigo.
Right, it's like a split screen between the two?
Yeah, it's a split screen of their faces, and they both look shocked at first, but then at the very end, Maki smirks, and you're like,
she gets a little bit of a lip curl.
It's the minorest of smirks, and so our basically when we watched this movie the first time, we were like, we so can't tell if that's intentional, if that's just clumsy. Is that like because like everything about that reaction, that like series of reactions we see from people is like so already clumsy and awkward, and so it's like, is that another way it's just clumsy and awkward, or is that intentional? And it's not spoiling things too much.
Pretty intentional. I totally missed this smirk the first time around.
But yeah, it's actually pretty intentional.
She does also just like walk away right there. It's like, oh,
It's fine.
like the one in, is it okay to leave them after like the one of them just horribly murdered the other one? It's like,
This is before the horrible murder, as I recall.
No, this is like no, I think CT is referring to when she and Daigo walk off, and then Daigo's like, "Is it okay?" And she's like, "Yeah."
She's like, yeah,
it's literally
good.
5 seconds after that everyone is still shocked and she's just sort of taken off. And it's like, I know it's important to go look shit up here, but seriously, you didn't spend any time with them after that. Mako is like traumatized. May Crackmon is gone. And yeah,
Exactly.
they're still not very shocked. What was it? I guess Hikari got a bit of a decent cry out there, and maybe Mako's expression looks a little authentic, but the rest, like, you see, what is it? Tai and Matt there, and they're like, "What? That was very surprising. A thing happened." Huh. What the heck just happened? That's literally what they translated. What the heck just happened?
What the heck, guys? Yeah. Huh. It's so okay. So going into this, I'm curious if you'd heard anything about Leomon. Like, had you heard that name around at all?
No, it's a total mystery going in.
Okay, because Leomon is notorious in every Digimon season as being I guess the trope is a sacrificial lion that, like, maybe in the first season he was meant to be this like big heroic figure who dies tragically, and then in like every Digimon season they incorporate, except for, like I said, he's not in the second season, but every season aside from that there is some form of Leomon who in some way tragically dies. And so basically, since I think it was teased in like synopsis of this movie were released before it came out, and it like mentioned Leomon was there, and everyone was like, okay, cool, so he's gonna die. And like, so I think they kind of handled that pretty well in terms of like having him survive the battle where everyone expected him to die and then still die. Like,
Really, I think it would have been way cooler if he survived multiple movies and then died. But like, I was like, all right, you're just doing it all in one movie,
right,
then. Cool.
Yeah.
Like,
but yeah, so most Digimon fans going into this expected him to die at some point. And yeah, so it's like, I don't know.
So he's the red shirt of Digimon, sounds like.
Yeah, exactly. But it's not like, I mean, yeah, it's not quite red shirts.
I was looking for the thing you'd sent over to me to see it in context. I'm like, okay, everyone else leaves their mouth open, so it's got to be on purpose. But
right, and her mouth is initially open, and then at the last second it changes to be.
Yep, she closes it into that.
Yeah.
At the very least, partial smile.
It's kind of like in so many instances in the movie, there are like long extended shots of people that their expression doesn't change at all. I think that's the only one where it does. So it's kind of like training. It's training you to not look at those details. Well, no, I think it's training you to not look at those details. And then when it does, a lot of people didn't even notice, but the people who did, it sticks out. But then, yeah. But
then we're like, is this intentional? The animation's so bad.
But anyway, in terms of things it does actually execute well, like the Maki leaving Makomon on the roof there.
She seems like the secretive sort. She seems like the kind of person who there are overriding plans going on. She's the one who introduces Mako, right, and has the connection with her in the beginning.
Yeah, they clearly have some history. I got the impression before this part that she'd been secretly helping keep Makomon under control.
Yeah, something like that.
And now maybe she's actually a bad guy. It's confusing, and if you're confused as to whether it's intentional or just poorly executed, then I really have no hope of figuring it out.
Well, okay,
we'll
say it's confused. We were confused when we watched this movie, but by the end of even the next movie, it's not confusing anymore. It's pretty clear. So
that's good to hear.
Yeah, it's one thing to look forward to.
Yeah, you get clarity on something.
Yeah.
Yay, resolution.
And we talked about how the fight was pretty disappointing, that like wasn't animated particularly well. And I think we talked in the first movie about the evolution forms being weirdly like having no real communicated rules about who could digivolve to what at what point. And this extends that even more. But I assume without much context that you didn't really like these new forms. They meet Vikemon and Rosemon are new of this movie. I mean, they're not new Digimon. They've existed in other media properties, but these Digimon reaching that form is new. And I guess you get that context with Izzy or Kusho just being like, this is interesting. And
right, there was a bit of that. But the other thing that struck me was just, like, the rapidity of going through it. How arbitrary is this whole goddamn evolution thing anyway? Because, first of all, what the hell was it? Gabumon? What the Gomamon, I guess, was the Joe's one,
Yeah.
who was in there not doing anything. And it's like, you went in there to help your friend. You have one friend who's busy evolving, on her own. How come you're not helping in any way?
That's what's confusing, but I came to the conclusion that it wasn't entirely known. Just the fact that their digidestined pair were outside of the, I don't even know what kind of thing they were in.
They didn't have access to whatever the hell those little communicators are. The things they flash to momentarily.
No, okay.
The Crest.
But
I remember something.
They're just yelling at him through a laptop, and it's like, okay, apparently Gomamon can't do anything until Joe lamely comes back
because of
and
the
just
Wi-Fi range, I guess.
says a word of encouragement. Here now, and then it's like, I can immediately evolve 3 times into a form I've never used before. And go crazy. And I was like,
you say Ike Gomamon, and then it's all good.
Yep.
Go Mamon.
Wow.
I didn't see any. I didn't see any reaction from their communicators. The only one that I remembered seeing in that scene was Mako's darken when what is it? Meikumon starts getting corrupted.
Yeah, I guess they're not really showing the, as they're called, Digivoices, but I wanted to see how you keep referring to them without hearing that word. But I guess they showed them more prominently in the original series when it was like more grounded in mechanics and rules that were established. This series is very much like kind of there are some rules being established, but they're kind of just bending around. They're not communicating things up front at the very least. And so, like, in the original series, it's like, you need to have this thing present, and then it'll help them digivolve, and then you need to get this other object that then pair with this other one, which then you need to have an emotional catharsis moment, and then pair with all 3 of those, then they can digivolve. But this season, it's just like, things kind of happen, and, like, then we can later say there was a prophecy that helped, but, like, who knows?
Okay.
Just have the emotional catharsis, and then you get...
They barely even had... Maybe it's just like, you did say that. Okay. Digivolve to Ultimate now.
Super Ultimate. It wasn't normal Ultimate. It was multiple Ultimate.
What they say in the evolution is different. Like, I don't know what they say in, like, they say, like, Cho Shinkai, whatever, which might be, like, there might be multiple levels of, like, super ultimate evolution, but the actual forms in the English dub, which is not the terms they use here, but the English dub terms are champion, then ultimate, then mega, which I always found intuitive, but also I heard it when I was a little kid, so I found it intuitive. But in the Japanese, the terms they use here are adult, then perfect, then ultimate. So, like, I find it more confusing that, like, perfect isn't the highest stage, because I'm like, that seems more like it's
higher than perfection.
I don't know, being the ultimate is harder. Ultimate is supposed to mean...
Be the ultimate, right?
It is, but mega, like, as a kid, you know, like, mega sounds so much cooler. It's like, mega.
Well, that could get confusing with that Omegamon if that's a recurring character.
Yeah, that too. I mean, they renamed him in the English to Omnimon instead, I guess, to avoid that.
Here's the thing, that, like, it shows their communicator, but I don't see a connection. I didn't see it doing anything on the person. It's just, well, this is their evolution transformation scene, so it's got to show you the dumb thing along with the CG one. Whereas Mako's was the only one where they saw something happen to it on her person. The other ones just, look like they're baked in. So when Sailor Moon transformations look wrong because they're reusing animation, which doesn't match the scene, that's all I associated the watch with. Again, they're trapped outside.
Bluetooth range makes as much sense as anything else here.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, there are lots of... You know how, like, in the beginning of Death Note, he explores how the different rules work? Not the Netflix version, but...
Not the Netflix movie.
But yeah, Digimon does not do that. Digimon does not have them explore what happens if, like, can they digivolve without... If the Digivice is present, but not the human? If the human's present, not the Digivice? Like, all these things are just... lazily written and explored, so...
Yay.
Yeah. So were both of their ultimate forms, Vikimon and Rosemon, were, like, discovered here?
Yep.
revealed here. So,
Well, I mean, like I was saying before, they've existed as designs in the Digimon canon, but never like connected to these Digimon. Or that's not true.
right, but
They've been connected to these Digimon lines because there's a Digimon Adventure. This is Digimon Adventure Tri, right? The original season of Digimon Adventure. There was a PSP game that came out like 4 years ago. It was not that long ago, but it was years ago. I've lost track of time. But anyway, maybe like 4 years ago, this PSP game came out, and in that PSP game, so in the original season, they only get to the perfect level. They don't get to the ultimate level. And in this PSP game, they changed events a little bit so they do all get to the ultimate level. So I guess it like in that version revealed that Gomamon eventually evolves to Vikemon and Palmon goes to Rosemon. But this is the first time in the anime, in this continuity, in this canon.
you know, the weirdest friggin' thing about all of this, I know that they use CG for part of the transformations. Why is Ikakumon, or whatever the hell the sea lion thing, that was the only one where it's like, oh, it transformed into a CG thing, but all of the other forms don't really appear to turn into like that manner of whole CG model. It's like, that was weirdly thrown in, especially because it lasted half a second. Because it's like, oh, okay, now transform into Ikukamon Super Evolution, then whatever the hell Ultimate Evolution. It's like you're not even staying there for all that long. Why did that form necessitate CG, and then they just went right back to 2D for Zudamon and Vikemon or whatever?
So I think I still don't understand the reasoning for it, but like the champion / ultimate evolutions to their basically their first evolution is like the base form and the evolution form are in CG in the animation sequence. Then once they actually cut to like, actual fight, it's back to 2D. But then for some reason for the next two levels, they've always been 2D animation, not CGI. Maybe because I think
They're
they
just
debuted.
too complex.
No, I think maybe that they debuted these like these new, like the perfect and ultimate forms, the two highest forms. This is the first time in the movie series, they use them for these two characters. But the champion / adult forms have been in it from the beginning. Like they are all shown in the first movie, actually, except for Ikakumon, because Joe was just like, I'm not participating this whole movie, I think. So this might be the first time Ikakumon's appeared, but for the other 7, I think maybe they needed to resort to CGI to get them out more quickly, maybe, and because they'd be reused more often. Whereas these, like, they had more time to spend on the higher level forms because they're, specific to a movie, and maybe that's my guess.
Gotcha.
But I don't know if, like, it still kind of confuses me that CGI is cheaper than hand-drawn stuff.
Yeah, but it's also weird because they go, as you say, they go right back into 2D right after.
Yeah, for the actual fight.
And why would you do it for the reusable? Like that, what the hell was it? Sailor Moon Crystal did that as well. And I'm like, why are you using 3D for the thing you're going to reuse most of the...
Right, like just
the
do
rest
it once.
of you isn't. You're going to reuse that all the time. Why is that in 3D?
Right, it seems like just like spend a bunch of time doing it well and then reuse it. Like, that's fine. Like,
right.
But whatever inane decision is going on there, it's still Toei. So
okay, yeah. Well,
I don't know how the director.
Yeah. Do we actually know offhand whether CG animation or 2D animation is more expensive to produce these days? Because come think of it, I'm not sure I do, and that might explain this apparent disparity.
I'm not sure either.
The assumption has to be that CG is cheaper because otherwise they wouldn't use it. They wouldn't do it so goddamn poorly all the time. That's more to the point.
I think it's definitely, it might vary on like the context and how it's used. Because I mean, in terms of like, animating background characters with CGI instead of animating those characters by hand, definitely seems like that's cheaper. But like maybe characters in the forefront that have more detail, maybe that is more complicated and expensive CGI than animation. Hand drawn, I don't know. But
I don't know.
It's like maybe the reason they do it for the transformation sequences in Sailor Moon Crystal and in this is because they think it looks better. That's a possibility, isn't it? Like,
well, fire those people.
Who knows? Yeah, and I guess there's some additional context and baggage to the Digimon they're fighting. Imperial Digimon is
Yeah, I assumed Imperial Dragonmon or whatever the hell it is. I'm like, okay. I assume they've met this thing before.
Oh, okay.
No, I assumed it was a reappearing thing. Well, everyone I assume has existed in some form or another. They instantly recognize it, and I assume we as the audience are supposed to instantly say, oh, that's serious, because it's Imperial Dragomon or whatever. Like, I mean, it's big and impressive looking, so therefore one assumes that that's what's going on.
Yeah, it's basically it's a kind of the equivalent of Omegamon from the second season. Like it's the highest evolution form of the main two characters in the second season. So it's pretty significant, but also like not explained how or why it's happening in this movie. So
why is that one hanging out there?
Yeah. I mean, he is like basically in the same way that Omegamon is a fusion of the Taiji and Yamato. This Imperialmon is supposed to be a fusion of Ken and the main character of the second season. So
right.
There's some connection to Ken, but like who knows if it's the real thing. They don't seem to show any like concern over like defeating it. Like so I guess that's supposed to imply that it's not dead. It's like, well, who knows?
It's just because all of these forms are actually represented in the Digimoniverse otherwise, and it's simply that they can co-evolve into them with the help of the Digidestined, but so it's not like Imperial Dragomon is unique to Ken's critter and whoever else's.
Well, in the shows, in the anime universe, it is. So, but who knows if this plays into that, and maybe this is the first time that it's not connected. It's still unclear.
Okay.
Yeah, but they're like in this universe, in this anime universe, like Omegamon is only a fusion of two characters. Like, it has to be a fusion of Wargreymon and Metal Gurumon, right? But like in the games and everything, there's probably a way to get it without fusing. Maybe not. I don't know about that. Because that one definitely is like, Omegamon is definitely designed as like, I don't know if you remember from the first movie, but it's like one arm is the one Digimon, the other arm is the other Digimon. Imperial Digimon,
right,
on the other hand, is very much like its own thing. So it's not really two things combined. And like we said before, the things that culminate in the evolutions to the highest level are pretty disappointing and like random and whatever. But
there is, as you say, a very little like you're pulling a lot of inferences from the encounters going on that you'd think the characters would react to in some fashion, have some curiosity about, have some concern over. Their actions change because of it, but until they figure it out. But it's all like, nope, just beat each other upside the head.
Yep.
As you do.
Yeah.
As you do.
So before we close out, I want to do I labeled this in my notes, the Crest Guess Fest.
Oh, actually, I was going to call it the Crest Test, but you you went one more.
That's because he's Jeff and he can't help him.
I like Crest Test too, though. Okay, so here are the 8 attributes of the traits that the Crests have that are associated with these characters. And I'm gonna list all 8 of them, and then I want you to pick for this movie. This movie is centered on Mimi and Joe. I want you to pick the 2, I guess both of you independently, or you can confer, whatever. Pick the 2 that you think apply to Mimi and Joe. So the 8 options are courage, friendship, love, knowledge, sincerity, reliability, hope, and light.
I'm gonna guess reliability for Joe. Just throwing that out there now.
Actually, I'm gonna throw a wrench into the mix to make it even more confusing. So, because some of these names, this is the name that the dub uses. Since we're not technically watching the dub, then I guess it's not entirely fair to use them because there is some translation interpretation in them. So, Crest of Courage is pretty straightforward. It's just Yuki. Friendship, also straightforward. It's Yujo. Love, also straightforward. Aijo. Sincerity is one of the ones that is a kind of weird translation. The Japanese word is junshin. I'll paste that in Slack so Gabe knows which kanji it is. But it's supposedly literally meaning purity or sincerity.
Innocence, yeah.
Yeah. So the dub translates sincerity, but it's like, yeah, like a innocent sincerity.
That's quite an interpretation.
That's quite
Well, I mean, on gshow.org it says purity/sincerity.
Better.
I don't know. But yeah, and knowledge is pretty straightforward. Reliability, this one is another one where things get pretty confusing. So the Japanese word is seijitsu.
It's more like loyalty, huh?
Yeah, Jisho is saying sincere, honest, or faithful. So it's kind of confusing that that's reliability in the dub, but also kind of means sincerity. So
if I was going for it, but part of it is I'm taking off a comment you made earlier when starting to talk about the Crest, in that, like, they played into what was going on with Mimi and Joe in here, so it felt more like with Mimi, it would conceivably be reliability or sincerity, and with Joe, you'd go to courage. But I'm like, courage is always like the main character one, so I'm betting if you're moving it off to the side, his might be friendship, because it seems like his friendship with them is being tested by all of this, and including with his with Gomamon. So, but I'm not really putting anything into it other than trying to see which ones they're sort of tapping for their conflict, their personal conflict stuff.
I would also guess courage would be Taichi's, but friendship would be Yamato's. Because that seems like the core friendship focused on, at least from what we saw in the first movie.
So wait, so what do you think Mimi's is?
For Mimi?
Yeah.
I guess I'm going to have to go with sincerity, innocence, whatever they call it here.
Okay, so it looks like Gabe guessed correctly on both fronts, and CT, you got sincerity for Mimi, right? But not friendship for. But I mean, I like Gabe's translation of sincerity a lot more, or no, of reliability being loyalty, right? Because that I think fits things more.
Certainly, that would fit, because Mimi was more. Mimi was in this case a little bit less reliable, but Joe would be less loyal to the group. That's more where I was going with finding a conflict with friendship. Of course, the first two traits you would usually assume, if you're putting them in order,
I shouldn't have
are the
ordered
main
them.
two characters. I was going to say, if you're doing that, because love, I assume that ends up being Sora's at that point. Because
I actually ordered them by their like order they get Digivolutions in the original series, so that kind of makes it a little bit obvious.
that puts them in kind of a prominent order.
Yeah,
I wonder who knowledge could be.
Well, so I don't know.
Joe's studying all the time.
Yeah, I was gonna say Joe and Kusher. I feel like you could make compelling arguments for.
But they already know what Joe is.
Kusher is obviously knowledge. Like, I mean, it practically goes without saying. He's been the brains for two movies now.
Right. I was going to say that Joe definitely crosses over that thing, because that's what his overriding concern is, but Koshiro has been the, hang back, deal with the server farm, look up everything. I'm like, if anyone is going to be knowledge, it has to be him. So,
Wait, so Ashley, I'm actually really confused. So there's a scene that I thought would be in this movie when we watched it, but it wasn't in this movie.
What?
Where Joe is getting his, being placed in the back of the class because of his test results? Then the third one?
I guess it's the next movie, yeah.
Oh, so there's some...
I remember something like that from the first movie, honestly.
Oh, it was in the first movie?
It could have been. I think I recall something like that as well.
Okay,
because... As I just said, it's been a couple of years, so...
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's not the best as we've established.
It's been almost as many years for you watching this as it has been for the characters since they were last in the show. In the 3 years, the 3 year gap of the... They've aged so much. We've aged so much.
Yes, I know, and gotten wiser. Now, we probably held that before, but is because one of the crests there is light, and of course one of the characters' name is Hikari, which means light.
Well.
And her last name is Yagami.
That's also true for courage here. So
something that I didn't really realize until recently, actually, because I knew that, I knew the word for light and stuff. I didn't realize until recently that Koshiro's name also has the kanji for light in it. Fun fact.
Does it? I must have missed that in one of his texts.
Yeah, I don't know if they showed it too much, but his name is basically Light Child Guy Spring, Hot Springs, I guess. So.
Well, the spring would be his family names.
Yeah, exactly.
It wouldn't be right in that order if it was in kanji. So yeah.
So closing out, what are your final impressions of this movie? Do you have any takeaways? Do you have any, you're glad to have watched it for X, or you hated watching it because of Y?
Well, there's more that we plan to discuss than I was perhaps expecting, because honestly, I found it pretty dull going through it, and would only have done so, again, because we had to talk about it here. Not for any other reason.
I'm getting a lot more entertainment value out of our conversation than I do out of the show.
Than the actual movie.
Yeah, no question there. it's an interesting experiment on our part as well. At least, again, speaking for me, but
now I'm at least intrigued at the end here because it does seem like they're swinging dark in some way. So maybe there will be something mature enough theme that will happen by the end that it steers further away from the kind of show I feel like it probably had been for most of its run, but especially because isn't one of them called Loss?
Yeah.
Yes.
That is the latest one that's out now. That's already out, the fourth one.
So,
one of them is called Symbiosis, the one that's coming out.
Yeah.
Nice. I'm encouraged at the very least that it seems to be developing in a way that might become more interesting, but that doesn't mean it's a trip that I particularly cared to take, or
we would not take of our own volition, I think it's safe to say.
Yeah.
It's one of the ones that definitely wouldn't have been like, I'm trying the first 3 and keep up with it. So if we're doing, the new anime 3-episode trial, even if I were coming to this blind, I would have been like, whatever. And certainly I might have gotten to 3 out of curiosity just by the reputation of the show, but I wouldn't have bothered continuing. So that hasn't really changed. Now, maybe by the time we're over, there will be more to it, but again, I think more of that is actually going in with an expectation of chatting with you all about it. So I don't know what will happen, with the show itself, but there you have it.
Yeah, I'm hoping that this twist ending, and not just with Mekumon probably being the source of evil, but also with perhaps Maki's true colors being revealed, that the next entry or two may be more interesting than what we've seen so far. But yeah, as I suspect most Digimon fans, having listened this far, would guess this is, or having seen, this really isn't the best introduction for a Digi-Noob to become fond of the series.
I've been told, I guess, that, trying the Hosoda films off on their own, because it might be way. I still feel like that's missing too much context from the world to just be a grand old adventure, as much as I rather enjoy things that Hosoda makes. I don't really know how to connect to the movies of the show that has, 100 episodes that you don't watch and don't care about.
Well, I mean,
so there's a limit.
The movies, so the two movies that Hosoda directed, first of all, they're pretty short. They're like 30-minute OVA movies. The first one is set before the series, so it was like Japanese audiences would have actually seen it before the series started. So it totally is watchable without the context of the series. It's not that great. It's kind of just a sick setup for, it's not really that good on its own, I would say, though, even though it is watchable on its own. And it only has any significance in that it sets up, it basically tells kind of the backstory of a pivotal event that becomes why they all became Digidestined, basically, why they were all chosen.
Right.
So on its own, it's not that great. But the second movie is actually the one that is the precursor to Summer Wars. I think actually does do a pretty good job of, what these movies do is try to have all the characters in there and try to have its cake and eat its stew. That movie is very much backgrounding almost all the characters except for a core 3. And I think does enough development of those core 3 over the course of the movie that you might become fond of them even without prior, experience with them. So I'd say I don't want to, if you're not going to go, I wouldn't push you to go watch it because I think it's nice to have your unexposed impressions here. But I think it is accessible. And if you wanted to, I think it would work watching on its own.
Gotcha.
But it's still not nearly as good as Summer Wars. Summer Wars does so much more. It has a longer runtime, but I think it does so much more with that with that original concept. Oh, wait, sorry. There's actually one more thing I want to get in the call before we end up. So, okay. So how would you, now that you've seen 2 movies, how would you rank these 2 movies? Which one would you put first?
Which one's
of the
better?
2? Yeah, basically, yeah, for now, which one's better? CT, which one do you think is better?
Like I said, I did, even in the beginning, I enjoyed Determination more because it seems to be going somewhere. There's a bit too much character introduction that doesn't, I'm not getting any meaning from it in the beginning, and of course it's the slow setup of stuff. I missed the cell phone destruction in Determination. We didn't have nearly enough of it, but at least it feels like it's going somewhere, and they kind of had more amusing character dynamic stuff, like the onsen visit and the festival, at least. They're also having more fun with it as opposed to just there are these weird holes opening up in the sky and we have to go chase down things. And
but the cell phone's very serious.
Yes.
In my head, when you first see Taichi brooding at the onsen at the very start of the series, I took that as him still thinking about the cell phones from the first movie.
Yeah.
Oh no, the cell phones.
Not the cell phones. Okay, which movie's better, Gabe?
I think I'd have to go with this one as well. The first one, again, while it didn't bore me as much as just also had more egregious flaws that didn't seem to make any real thematic or character-based sense, which, again, we just described before. So this one was a much more simpler story and maybe not the best executed at times, but there were some awesome more core parts of what it had there, I think, made more character-related sense than what we saw before. So even as I was simultaneously a bit more bored with it, I would also rank it better than the first, if that makes sense.
Sure.
Your feelings are complicated.
Feelings are complicated.
Yes.
I'm curious to see how this evolves over the course of the other ones, how they fit into it, and what you remember about these over time.
Yeah, well, it depends when we get to it. If it's not
2 years later.
Yeah.
if it's not a good 21 months after the initial one, it might stick a little bit more. So if Digimon Adventure Tri Episode 9 Confession Part 1 happens sooner, then I guess we'll see.
This has been Podige's T2.1, covering Digimon Adventure Tri Chapter 2, Determination. Did you find any of the Digi-Noobs reactions interesting? Do you want to know what they thought about something that didn't come up in the episode? Do you want to hear more Digi-Noobs episodes covering the Tri Chapters 3 through 5, and eventually 6, maybe someday if that ever comes out? Let us know your thoughts in the comments at podiges.com/T2.1, and you can also send your thoughts to Podiges on Twitter, Tumblr, or Facebook, to podiges@gmail.com, with the will thread, or by forcing your friends to watch Digimon enough that they scream into the ether and then we hear it. Special thanks to Maro05 on Tumblr for the Jomi artwork we had commissioned for Determination, feels like forever ago, and to our prodigious Patreon supporters who help make everything we do possible. Special thanks go to our current champion Patramon, Diabjomon, at Tokujo on Twitter, Dizzy Dizumi, at Dizzy and Lost on Twitter, Joe Keto, Kailunamon, Sam Kriwagamon, also on the Moncast, our Ultimate Patramon, Andy Lusamon, David Graumon, Michael Penne, and our Mega Patramon, Marcus. If you want to follow the people on this episode, we are all on Twitter. I'm Definitely Jeff. Ashley is AshMcD00. CT is CTHellIs. Actually, not sure how you're supposed to pronounce that. Anyway, and Gabe is technically on Twitter, but has been on hiatus for the past several years. But if he ever comes back, you can find him at Gabe Glick. And of course, the podcast itself is Podiges on Twitter, Tumblr, and Facebook. Share the podcast with friends that will let you force them to watch Digimon. And don't share the podcast with your friends who don't know what narcissistic means. And join us next week because it's time to X-Evolve. Bye! And remember, never stop Digivolving.
It was like a million years ago.
Yeah, it's interesting to hear voice actor, in the DVD or Blu-ray set that just came out. There are like voice actor interviews and stuff, and some of the voice actors refer to it as the series is aged, we've aged just as much as the characters have, and I'm like, characters have aged 3 years in the past 16, so I don't know about that, but okay.
That's one of the things I meant to mention it earlier that I found hilarious, because at one point Mimi looks at something which has the date on it, and the date is like 2004, and so the textbooks have it on it, and I'm like, wait a minute, it's a modern movie, and then I'm like, wait a minute, I have to go back, and when did it start? Plus 3.5 years or whatever. Oh, okay, right.
It's very confusing.
So, yes, well, we didn't get too many, cell phone torture in this one for me to start dating things by their flip phone technology.
Wait, Gabe, have you read or watched My Hero Academia at all?
I'm caught up with the manga. I haven't watched any of the anime.
Oh, okay. Because the, what's it called in the series? The Cavalry Festival, whatever.
Oh, the Cavalry
Like, I didn't realize that was a real thing. That's
a real thing, apparently.
The kids in school actually do.
If it was, then I missed that. So this is the thing, like, not to get too much on a tangent, but this is the part where they were going around in teams trying to knock the one they're carrying around off or something.
Yeah.
No, I didn't know that was an established thing.
Yeah, apparently it's a thing that like schools do in like en masse with like huge armies of kids.
What are they doing? They're just sort of piling up. They carry like one person on their shoulders and move around as a group. Is that what?
Yeah,
trying to grab the other's headbands, I guess.
Yeah, I've seen that in other anime, so it certainly felt like a thing that they did, not an arbitrary thing.
It seemed like, I don't know, in My Hero Academia was the first time I saw it, but like I was like, this is absurd because this would not be that possible. It's not seem like physically possible in real life, but I guess they do it. I think it's called Kiba something. I mean, that's just like horse riding, but
I think Orange just had something like it. Maybe not exactly that, but in that direction. So
there's a podcast I listen to that's with two people who have like lived in Japan at various points, and they kind of model themselves after Hello Internet a little bit to some degree, but like talking about Japan culture at times, and they talk pretty extensively about like discovering this, and like I think one of them taught in a Japanese school, or at least had a kid in Japanese school, and like, yeah, seeing all the different things they do with that. Because even like the way they do it in My Hero Academia is pretty simplistic. It's just like grab the headband of another one. But apparently in real schools, they have like armies and generals who lead the armies and all this stuff. Pretty intense.
If we're going to blab on for a couple 10 more minutes, there is actually something I'm curious about, which is how you two, as obviously established Digimon fans, felt about these two movies at this point, having seen them yourself. Forgetting your thoughts of the later ones, just again, are they hitting the mark for you as Digimon fans? Are you enjoying them as they were meant to be intended, do you think? You mentioned sloppy execution at various points, so I wonder if we're picking up some of the same issues here, but perhaps we're just pointing for different reasons. Thoughts like that.
So are you thinking of like our impression from around the time, or like now?
That's a good. Well, again, CT and I only have the first movies to reference, so I guess for my perspective, I'd be curious how you think of those two stack up against each other, because we just can't share our thoughts on the later ones yet.
Yeah. Well, so I think the first, definitely after having watched the second one, I like the second one better.
Yeah,
but I think
we all agreed that the second one was better.
But I think we happened to like revisit it less. Like we had revisited the first one a couple of times because of our Digi-Noobs episode, because of the dub, and because we watched it like multiple times before. But this one, I think we basically hadn't touched since we initially watched it. Yeah. So like it wasn't so much like fresh in my mind, but I think we definitely agreed it was better, but it wasn't like, in some ways the first one is more impactful, and like that's when they reunite. Like that's a more important event, but the second one was more like, yeah, it's more fun that they get to go to the onsen, they get to school festival. Well, the onsen mainly was the fun part. Like the second one was much more about fun and stuff.
Yeah, we agreed that like Joe and Mimi's conflicts were like way less annoying than Taichi's.
Right, and like way less annoying, but also like verging on actually interesting.
Yeah.
Not handled well in the end, but like actually interesting, and because of that depth of the characters that we have seen before. Not depth, but you know what I mean? Like because of that extra context, having any kind of conflict with them was... Yeah,
I think there was still, like, a lot of their frustration with seeing people like Ken and Imperial Dramon comes not from, like, the movie itself, but again, like, the hype that was built around those being in the PV, and then them being, like, such a little... Like, just a cameo in the movie.
Right, like I said before, it was like, their appearance in this movie was already kind of like a preview for the rest of the movies. They already kind of like a teaser to get you excited for how are they possibly connected? But like seeing them in PVs, and there was even like, there were like two traditional PVs, and there was like a commercial that aired on television that aired right before, like in the week before the movie came out. And in that commercial, they like showed Ken picking up Mekumon. Like it was very explicit, and they were very upfront about all that stuff. Our cat is getting really hyper.
Yes? Do you have opinions?
Uh,
Do you have opinions?
he wants to be a cat Digimon too.
Yeah.
So yeah, then watching the movie and being so excited to see how they interact, what their importance is, what their significance is, and then being like, oh no, this was the teaser. I'm like, oh, great.
Yeah, like
Cool.
there was
you
definitely like built up frustration from like, oh my god. And I guess generally that's where we learned like the patterns of this movie. Like you get the second movie's poster and you're like, okay, I see there's a pattern here. You're going to feature 2 characters in each film or whatever. It's going to be like about their character drama. When you release these PVs, the things that we're going to hype up about them are going to be like the minorest things in the next movie and stuff. And
So we kept like in the movie since in the movie since we kept watching those PVs, but like with the better sense of like, this thing is probably, it seems like it might be a big deal, but it's probably not going to be. Like, we're not going to get too excited about it. Yeah, we also, there was some weird stuff with like, we had seen, no, that was the third movie. Never mind, I'm confused. There's stuff where like they released the 10 or 5 to 10 minutes of the movie beforehand in various forms. And so a lot of people go into watching the movie like having already seen the first 5 to 10 minutes of it, and then they're like extra bored when it actually, because you're going into like, I've already seen this exactly, like,
That seems inefficient.
Yeah. So I avoid those completely nowadays.
Yeah, basically what I learned is like avoid the hype because the hype will try very hard to be hype and like so hardcore disappoint you. Like
Yeah.
Hype.
Yeah, I wasn't even considering that this, like, not meta stuff, but sort of extra contextual stuff
Yeah.
like previous would have factored into your experience so much. Like, this was not even a remote factor for
Yeah,
me,
exactly.
for CT as well.
no, right, exactly.
Right.
But also there's a lot of the awkwardness of this movie. I feel like a lot of the awkwardness of the first movie, I think it's just there. It's just like, it is like the cell phone stuff and like blah. But a lot of the awkwardness in this movie, I feel like is actually explained retroactively. You know, like
Meant to be there.
Yeah, but no. I now that I say that, it sounds a little bit too praiseworthy. I don't want to praise it that much. I don't want to say it was all meant to be
it
there.
did also be like, oh, were these things intentional because you had such a bad sense of it from the rest of it, and then you're like, okay, after watching the third movie, you're like, okay, I get some things were intentional.
Right?
At
It's
least.
like everything is like. Everything else is so incompetent. I can't tell if this is just incompetence or intentional. And so a bunch of those things are like, yes, it was intentional, but it still remains true that like everything else around it was still lots of incompetence. So,
yeah.
Yeah.
So, overall, thumbs up or down?
It was like a so-so. We were like, this is on an upward trend.
Yeah, I think
Cautiously optimistic.
Yeah.
I think I was like unqualified thumbs up, like just like, yes, totally thumbs up. But I was still like thumbs up in a way that's like, there are so many flaws and it's so bad as a standalone movie. So bad as a thing that's like people in no context. But
I mean, again, rewatching it this time, I was like, actually, this movie is worse than I remembered it being. Darn it.
yeah. Yeah.
But
I think part of it also comes from watching it dubbed. Like when
part of it definitely came from watching it dubbed, but overall,
Well, there's your problem.
but the dub just exacerbates the things that are already awkward in the sub.
Right, it's not so much the
version.
dub writing is bad or the dub execution is bad. It's more that like without the barrier between subtitles.
The writing wasn't great to begin with.
Yeah, the writing wasn't right to be great to begin with, and like if you experience it like natively, you're like, okay, I can tell that this long awkward pause is actually a long awkward pause. I'm not trying to like read subtitles to catch up on things. It's like
Hikari just stands there for an extra beat too long that makes it weird, and you're just like, I don't. Okay, like.
Well, actually, it's because it's a reference to that one episode where she was frozen in stone for an extra half a beat.
I'm sure it was.
Oh, man. They're clever.
Yeah.
It's all in the details, huh?
Absolutely.
If only.
And I mean, the dub has more like cringeworthy jokes, but like overall, the silliest things are still silly from
Okay,
the
I have to ask,
original.
did they keep Yamato's band's name as is in the dub?
Oh, yeah.
World on the Knife?
Yes, World on the Knife.
Just get like hit into the World on Edge or something like a little bit better for English.
I think the knife is I don't know if you remember in the first movie, his like regular band, not the school festival band, but his regular band is Knife of Ramen. Or
No, it's Knife of Day.
Knife of Day. Sorry. They joked about it being Knife of Ramen.
They joke about it being Knife of Ramen.
Right, Knife of
Actually,
Ramen is what
Day.
came to my mouth naturally. I didn't need to say
know. I mean, it should have just been called Knife of Ramen, but like,
it. Yeah, so knife is his recurring thing, I guess. He's so edgy.
He's the knife.
He likes knives, man.
Yep.
You oldies just don't get it.
There was a point where like Ashley like tried to start eating things but they were in bags that were like going to make noise, and I was like, oh no, because like normally we're in like separate rooms, but we're not in separate rooms now, so anything that noise she makes is picked up on my mic too. So I was like, no, Ashley, don't. But then at some point she just like started pulling stuff out of her mouth. What was that?
I put one of these nuts in it, and then I was confused because you were so confused, and I was like, was I supposed to eat the shell? But no, it says don't eat the shell.
It says don't eat the shell?
Yeah. It says crack them open like a peanut and eat the almonds inside. Don't eat the shells.
Ew.
Jim's I wouldn't have bought this if I had known that.
Yeah, huh. Okay, so I thought it was like so gross that you had to pull something out of your mouth. But yeah, so like while we were talking, I was just like silently being, what the hell is this like monster that Ashley pulled out of her mouth and put on a napkin? Like,
it's a freaking almond shell.
Okay. Thanks again for spending all this time on this silly, stupid Digimon thing.
I hope the fans enjoy whatever this was.